Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's uLaw webinar. I welcome one and all to have joined us on our Join Me webinar link and kindly to request you to dial in to the phone numbers provided in the chat window for a better quality. Today's webinar has been accredited for 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits by the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, and New Brunswick. And the title for today's webinar is How do you ensure the BX, CX, UX, and PX, those 4 different experiences that we're going to talk about, is high for your law office. Okay, so that is the title. This particular webinar is being recorded, will be available on our YouTube channel as early as Monday. But for you to redeem the 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits, you would use this title, How do you ensure BX, CX, UX, and PX is high for your law office? Okay, so that's really the actual title given for this particular webinar. Now, typically in all webinars that we conduct, we talk quite a bit about compliance, we talk quite a bit about accounting, practice management, a lot of focus on compliance. This is one webinar we wanted to slightly differentiate the subject matter. It really comes in handy given today's context of where we are in this post-COVID situation of how best to help manage market and brand. Today's webinar, of course, is going to pretty much focus on 4 experiences that we believe a law office can strive to provide to its clients and constituents, including employees, partners, and stakeholders. Okay. Of course, the primary audience being the clients, prospective clients, as well as existing clients. And we'll talk about more about why you need to talk about existing clients. Okay. And what are these 4 experiences? Like every other uLaw webinar, today's webinar has this specific agenda that covers these 4 experiences, their definitions, and how you as a legal firm or a law firm can start to think about how you can improve these experiences that you currently offer, rethink strategies of how best to measure if these experiences are well received by the audiences, and how you can, of course, pivot, tweak your strategies to, of course, provide a more enhanced experience at the end of the day. We'll talk about the business of branding. We'll talk about tools that you could use to automate some of these experiences, not just practice management tools. We'll, of course, spend some time at the end to talk about practice management tools, legal accounting tools, can help you through this really long life cycle of customer management and delivering these experiences across all touch points. So we'll definitely look more into the marketing components and the tools that you have there as well. And before I get started, general housekeeping. If you have any questions at any particular time, please feel free to use the chat window that's been provided. Our support team at uLaw or myself would be more than happy to answer those specific questions. We would appreciate if it could be with regards to today's webinar. Okay. Now coming into the definitions. BX, what we call as the brand experience. Okay. Whether you're a legal firm that's just getting started, or if you're a law firm that's, I would assume, to be in business for a long time, looking to rebrand, reconnect with your constituents, your clients, your stakeholders, it's very important to consider this brand experience. Strategize right from the infancy of what this brand represents, how you and your employees can better carry this brand experience throughout all the customer touch points. How do you as a company market this brand across the various different social platforms, media, print, all the different marketing platforms that are out there to either showcase the renewed brand experience or to introduce a brand new legal firm experience to the end customer, right? But if you consider the brand experience as truly your foot in the door, or at least the initial representation of your firm to the audience, we ask you to consider a few factors as you strategize what this experience or what this brand should adequately represent. At the least, most certainly trying to be honest and prudent about who you are as a firm, whether it's a solo practitioner firm that represents the values of the individual, or if it's a large law firm that has the representation of various different employees that bring skill sets, values, virtues, and the integrity of the entire team. Okay, so the brand first begins with the question of who you are, your values, and last but not the least, the competence that you bring to the table. Now, how you differentiate from others? Of course, brand is many times used from a marketing play to really represent how you differ from that next legal office on the next street. That differentiation is brought in through the messaging in a very subtle manner through these three important components. The competence, of course, sets you apart in terms of the areas of practice that you excel in, providing references, providing experiences, providing the strength of your team. But who you are and the value that you bring needs to come truly from a mission statement of your firm or an individual as a sole practitioner. Should come from the references and the quotes that you have online that are referenceable, can be cross-indexed, can be provided as reference to customers. So if you actually have a quote from a client on your website that says they were very prudent to the way they managed my funds, they were very honest in providing legal service, and they were very on time in delivering everything that they promised, then of course you would want a prospective customer to be able to reach out, hopefully, to that client to validate. Because if that's your mission and you actually have a customer also resonating the same components of your mission, then of course you've done well to represent your brand to the new audience. So continue to keep asking the questions when you deliver or create this new brand experience as to who you are in terms of your firm, the values that you provide, and your competencies. Okay? I think there's a quick housekeeping question around audio, so hopefully you can hear me okay. Give me a thumbs up if you can. I've just increased my audio on my device right here. Oh, perfect. Moving along. So you certainly wanted to provide that experience that a client can feel through either a visual representation, through taglines, through mission statements, through the brand logo. There's many different visual components that go into this. It could be the actual website itself. Many times today, the domain name of a website in itself represents a brand, right? You can copyright, trademark specific domain names over a period of time if it represents your business. So we'll get into that as you start to look at new ways to market your brand digitally. But the bottom line is through this brand that you're strategizing and you're putting together, you really want to imprint confidence in the service excellence that you and your team as a firm can deliver. At the end of the day, you want your customer to come back to you as a repeat customer. You want your customer to refer you to a friend for a new client relationship, and that cascades and that builds brand. And over a period of time, once you've built that credibility, building that brand experience allows for other clients to easily recognize you as a firm and the values and the competencies that you bring. Right? So if you've got ABC legal firm and you've done a good job of delivering the goods and you're starting to do a good job of marketing that brand, and that brand has these three components of kind of who we are, your values and your competencies well established, whether it's through the logo, the domain, the website, then you are really setting yourself up for success when it comes to brand recognition. And what they call as the recall factor, if you will. Now that you've established what a BX is, the brand experience, then we move along to the customer experience. Okay, so you've done a great job. You've got the foot in the door. You've got a phenomenal brand. Everyone in your company aligns very well with the values. All your partners, stakeholders are aligned. Now comes the next step. You have a potential customer that has looked at your brand, believes in your brand, and wants you to help them represent in a case. Okay, so that's where we believe the journey of that customer experience begins. Right from the time of engagement, from that first discovery phone conversation to the closing letter or the statement of activity that you might actually send to a client, or a settlement statement, and anything to have a logical closure to a particular file or matter. Okay? Starting with that first phone call to ending that matter, asking for a referral business. The customer experience is what we believe is the perceived component and the experience that a customer feels with that hope, because before they don't know what your brand is about, they've just read about it, they've heard it from somewhere, they resonate, they come to your office, and now the customer experience begins, and it's your, I would say, responsibility to provide a very consistent behavioral experience for your customer. From that first welcome to the phone conversation, to every touch point document that you deliver, to every consultation that happens in between, right? And every document that you may actually deliver as part of your matter management and your customer lifecycle management. So hopefully you're with me so far. We've got the brand experience to get the audience in. We've got the customer experience to take them through this experience. Now comes the user experience. Now what is the user experience? We believe, again, the user experience as a term, of course, has many different meanings based on the industry that it's in. A software company would have a totally different meaning to what user experience is. A manufacturing company could have a different meaning to what it is. From a legal standpoint, what we believe is a user experience is the opportunity that you provide for, I would say, varied touchpoint experiences that the client receives inconsistent with the brand and the customer experience. So for example, today's day and age, especially with the COVID situation, you've got a great brand, you've done a phenomenal job of speaking to them and keeping them at comfort, but if you actually send them a retainer letter via mail and expect your client to come into their office to pay you for that retainer, that may be something that the customer feels is a bit of a disadvantage, or maybe something that they have to walk the extra mile to facilitate working with your law firm, right? So providing, for example, a self-serve payment option right within that branded experience through an email helps elevate that whole experience of not just a customer experience, but the end touchpoint user experience. Okay, so that's just a random example we wanted to throw out there from a legal standpoint. This could be many different things, ensuring that everyone in the team speaks the same language. If you're passing the file to another individual within the company, or if there are multiple individuals involved within working on the same matter, ensuring that you're delivering, I would say, information in the approved channels. So if you've decided to go down the email or phone conversation, being, again, consistent to your customer experience promise but delivering it through the technological advancements that are available to make that user experience that much better. And of course, the final is the product experience. Once again, that definition is varied across industries. But from a legal standpoint, if you really look at it, it's the end goal. It's through these various experiences as I reach the end goal of that relationship, the natural logical closure to a matter, leaving that client with a good taste of having worked with your firm and hopefully having accomplished what they came about. Of course, brand cannot necessarily, in fact, many times brand needs to reflect upon your mission statement, and the outcomes sometimes affect the brand. In the past, we've seen legal firms, have taglines saying 100% success, for example. So if you're going to be putting that as a tagline that guarantees or warranties success at that level of consistency, then you have to make sure that you're doing that. Even that one-off failure, if you will, or if someone necessarily didn't get a good experience out of that whole working with your firm, they're not going to resonate well with that tagline. So that kind of brand experience is kind of lost and gets diluted, it gets muffled because that person who didn't necessarily get the right outcome that they needed may go share that with someone else. It's like, watch out for that tagline. But if you're going to say, striving hard to work towards success, giving our 100% to work towards your success, that goes into your effort, that goes into your passion, that goes into the values that you and your team brings in. So you want to be very careful in how you use brand and how that can be connected with the actual outcomes provided by your firm. Okay? Now let's take a kind of a deeper dive into these four experiences. So now you have kind of an introduction to what this means. You may actually have to start thinking about where you are in these four experiences. You may want to jot down points. You may already have a great plan. We have a lot of new and upcoming firms that do a phenomenal job of the planning that goes ahead in building all of the marketing content, the branding experiences, the digital logos, figuring out the domains, ensuring there's a consistency in delivering of all documents. So planning becomes very critical in ensuring a consistent experience across all these components, and we're certainly seeing that in the industry today. This is just sometimes, as we feel, preaching to the choir, but also resonating the best practices so that you can continue to focus on those. If you look at the brand experience, as we mentioned earlier, it certainly plays a huge role in both for existing customers that have worked with your firm as well as prospective clients to come retain the firm, whether it's a repeat customer or if it's a brand new client. Okay? It's more important that you do that well every time because, as you know, a lot of word of mouth referrals is a big part of the legal industry's source of contact for your clients. So the brand certainly leaves a good impression on a good, happy customer. Let's put it that way. Now we look at where can we use these branded experiences to attract more clients, to, as we said, imbibe that confidence. In today's digital world, once again, emphasizing the post-COVID situation that we're in, we want to capitalize, law firms definitely need to capitalize on the use of social media marketing, where brand becomes an easy way for you, an easy outlet for you to market who you are and what you strive for. Whether that's Facebook marketing, whether it's LinkedIn, if it's just Google, it's online marketing, whatever the different channels may be that you decide to, or work with a marketing company to help you with, that of course is a business decision that you and your team members make. But it's something that you want to keep in mind as you look at marketing avenues. It's not the old school print. It's a value-added supplementary channel for the word of mouth, something that helps build that word of mouth faster. You can do this through customer referrals. So you, of course, have many different tools out there that help you gather the customer referral at the right time and then expand those customer referral points across social media. And one of the things we believe that can help with that branding is making sure that there's consistency in that branding across all of the documents that your customer and prospective customer looks into. So if there's a prospective client and you send them a client intake form, for example, that basically captures information about their, the individuals involved, basic first name, last name, phone number, even if it's as simple as that, ensuring that the logos, the brand is consistent with your website. It's consistent with the message, consistent with the colors even that are being used. Makes it easier for you and provide that confidence in the customer as they go through that life cycle. And once they become a customer, making sure that brand is still very consistent across all the documents. Every customer-facing document, right from your retainer letter, your invoices, very important, your receipts, payment receipts or retainer receipts, even to your closure letter, statement of activities, all those documents that you believe are customer-facing across that life cycle needs to have a very consistent brand, and that's where the tools that you use become very important to consider. Tools today, of course, give you that automation so that if you make a change, and let's say you just changed the brand, you went from red to blue or to green, it's just be an easy way for you to change it in one place and it reflects it all. You don't want to take a very manual approach to that. Especially because the brand most certainly represents a very consistent experience. Okay? Throughout the slide share, we stuck with Starbucks because we started with them, and because the content is already approved by Law Society, we continue to stick with that same story. But of course, you can take this across any brand that you are closer to. This is just an example that we've taken with Starbucks around how we use these 4 experiences and how they have used it. Okay, we're hoping to change this content to maybe use more law firm examples. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that sooner. But the crux of the content and the message that we're trying to share here across these experiences remain to be the same. Bottom line, good BX translates into great referrals. Customer experience. What are the Law Society or what are the documents that your law firm needs to represent to help through this customer experience? We've mentioned about the first touch point till the last closure letter. So every phone conversation. Now, there are law firms that often market or brand themselves as being available to service you across multiple languages. Okay, we've seen that often that you do have lawyers and legal professionals who can, of course, serve individuals across various spoken languages. And if that is true, and if you market that as part of your brand experience, and if you do market that, and you truly believe in that value and in that integrity of the value proposition, then making sure that your incoming phone call has a system that can very much accommodate those varied languages. Press 1 for English, press 2 for French. A very subtle change in your strategy around that, and the right tools that you could use, of course, would go a long way re-emphasizing that experience. Okay, that's just a random example that I wanted to share. But after that phone conversation, once again, all of the documents that go behind supporting each and every transaction with your client. We spoke about the retainer letter. We spoke about the invoices, the statement of activities. Even if you're providing with certain trust and general accounting, if your client were to ask you for quick general ledger, ensuring that it's consistent with what's expected from a Law Society standpoint builds that credibility, builds that prudence in the eyes of your customer. And where does the right tools come in here? Practice management, of course, really helps in a long way to build consistency in delivering documents. If you talk about brand, you have a consistent logo. And if you have these different documents that are client-facing, then you have consistent templates. Are you generating an invoice every time you serve a client, or are you creating a document every time there's an invoice, or are you just repurposing a template that you've created once that can be then used multiple times for a very similar nature of matter, right? So tools, practice management tools, there are other automation tools that you could use. Even simple automations on Word documents or PDFs should help you build the consistencies. Now, where does legal accounting come in? Once again, allows you to reduce the amount of human error, because that reflects badly on the brand, that reflects badly on, everything that you stand for on paper. So legal accounting and the right products allows you, of course, to remove any issues with accounting, with the numbers, billing misunderstandings, which is one of the biggest issues. Even if there's a misunderstanding, making it easier for you to correct them and respond fast to your client's need is critical, and the use of the right tools at the right time helps retain the essence of that brand. Okay, and pretty much trickles it down to a great customer experience. There you go. I don't know why I missed that. So when we look at the brand experience, of course, everyone knows the Green Mermaid. Whether you're in Australia, whether you're in India, in Canada, in the United States, you know what this brand represents, right? A good majority of them, of course, know what this brand is. And it's, of course, the brand of Starbucks. And there's a story behind this mermaid, and you can certainly Google that, and that talks about, why the brand, why the color, why the logo. Of course, they have evolved little nuances about the brand for the longest time that they've been in business, but the color and the mermaid story remains to be the same for a pretty long time now. Right? So when you think about brand, think about the colors, think about the logo, the design, the messaging, the tags. Going back to those three components: who you are, your values, and your competence. Okay? Because, Starbucks would never market themselves as a burger company. You don't go to Starbucks to have great burgers, right? It's very similar. So that's likely the closest analogy I could give you to competence. It's a great quality, great service, but you go to Starbucks for coffee and maybe some quick eats. Even that's being changed right now. So that's the same point. Why do they come to your legal firm? Great quality, great service, amazing experience when it comes to family matters. And not only that, they have a spread of not only family, they have legal professionals who can also help you with the criminal matters that you may be involved. In fact, they actually have a corporate set of lawyers who can help you with your business management needs. So that's the kind of experience and expectation you think you should leave with the experiences and the brand that you build. So in that line, you take it to the next level, which is now a personalized experience that you provide. This is the same Starbucks. It's the same coffee, but it's a latte with a person's name on it, adding that customer touch to that experience that you have. Right? Very consistent, and it's personable. Now comes the user experience, right? And we believe it's certainly a game changer. It's, I would say, something that allows even the solo practitioners and the small legal firms to compete. This is one area that everyone can compete because of the, I would say, the optimization and more or less the commoditization of technology. A website today have really branded a very cognitive website that renders well across devices, across browsers. It's very cost effective. It's not just for the large law firms to build. Anybody can have a simple but yet effective website, right? So starting with as simple as that, having the right tools, so you have voice over IPs. You don't have to have a hardwired phone line anymore because everyone's using the internet for the phones. So whatever systems that you may invest in, you now have the opportunity to provide, let's say, faster response time. So if someone were to leave you a voice message, so this is another thing we're starting to see with a lot of legal firms that are investing voice over IP. A couple of names that always comes to my mind, Vonage and RingCentral, but we certainly do come across many companies that do a phenomenal job of delivering these voice messages directly to your email. They could send it to you as a text so that you as a legal firm can quickly review it and respond back to a client. Kind of helps with that whole user experience. Great brand. They were phenomenal in how they welcomed me into their firm. And now I'm overwhelmed because they've just done a phenomenal job of responding to a voice message within 15 minutes. So that's where you want to take them to the next level, through that user experience. The customer walked into your office, or maybe during today's situation, spoke to you over Skype or Zoom. You sent them a retainer letter as a digital document. They signed it because you maybe embedded a digital signature like EcoSign or DocuSign. So once again, those are tools that you could use and invest in to help with that user experience. Like how you have real estate transactions happen between real estate agents and their customers. They invest in digital signatures that can help. So likewise, you can have a digital signature embedded in your digital documents with the consistent brand, delivered on time. They sign it. Not only that, you leave them with a little link where they can pay for that retainer that you spoke about right there in that document. It goes one step further. I don't have to come to your office, or I don't even have to call you to give you my credit card. Oh, by the way, that's going directly into trust, keeping my funds safe and you compliant, and phenomenal. That's a user experience, right? So as a legal firm, that's what you're striving to provide. Consistent brand, taking it to the customer experience, and really surprising them in a way, pleasantly surprising them, hopefully, with this amazing user experience. And if you take the same Starbucks example as an analogy, now you have that same branded cup. When you see the cup, you expect, your mind sets itself to expect that same level of quality of service, the same quality of the coffee, right? And now it's personalized, of course. But then as we say, think about it now, not even 5 years back. I would say the last 2 to 3 years, you're seeing a lot of customers who are, of course, busy professionals or feel the need for it, ordering their coffee online. I personally wouldn't do it, but that's the trend. And that's important to keep a tab on. It's not what you believe is the current trend, it's what the trend dictates it to be. So as a legal professional and as a business owner, the more you're starting to now work with the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, not so much Gen Z, but the next generation individuals and their expectations of user experience, right? You have now Starbucks offering that as a game changer where you can go online on their mobile app. They also have a lot of coupons that you can redeem, right, where you can do this online, pick it up at the store. Straightforward, simple, enhanced user experience. Same brand, same customer experience, same personalization, game changer, X factor effect, if you will. And all that put together results in the final product experience that the customer has enjoyed through working with your firm. Ensuring that you are working towards that satisfied customer, that all their needs were met, they were dealt with respect, with integrity, with the level of expertise and experience that your firm brings to the table, delivering a very superior user experience and customer experience, and completing that exercise or that transaction by providing maybe a referral system saying, I hope you're happy with our service. We would love for you to understand some of the other services that we offer, because a very recent survey showcases that not all clients appreciate and understand the length and breadth and the depth of service that a legal firm offers, even if they worked with that legal firm. So it now becomes almost your responsibility to not only educate through this branding experience to new clients, it almost becomes your responsibility to educate even existing customers of the other options that you can offer, right? How often do you go out of your way to tell your existing clients the other service offerings that you offer? It may not be for the same customer, but at least they have that information. Do you send them emails? Do you sign them up for newsletters? How does your brand now get resonated across the community? Do you write blogs? So all of this is very important when it comes to the final outcome and the product experience. So if you look at the brand, you're often thinking about customers, and that's important. And you're thinking about new customers, and you're thinking about maybe the repeat. But for that to happen, of course, there's a bit of education, using marketing as a way to educate en masse, right? So if you not only offer family law, maybe you've brought in this new set of employees and you're looking to expand your footprint into criminal or maybe into other areas of practice, landlord and tenant, you see the COVID situation has now opened up a slew of other opportunities. You have commercial LATB issues. You know, do I pay rent? I don't have the money to pay rent. You have a lot of commercial businesses that are trying to work with the government to understand the leeway they have. So legal representation almost becomes an important component of that. So do you have a pulse on that new change or what's happening? How do you help the audience or your customer who just worked with you on a small claims matter maybe 8 months back? How do they know that you now offer this LATB service, right? Beyond the website. That's what you have to strategize and think about. It's very important that you think about it today, because that can really set you up for success, and it pretty much sets you up for that ripple effect. And that's the beauty of the branding, is that once you have that set, the hope is that it lasts for a certain period of time, that you don't have to change it. But the channel, the message, the methodology, the strategy around that brand and how you take it to your end audience certainly should change, should evolve, and should be very fluid on a day-to-day basis. We also talk about other components, other audiences. So you may be a firm that's now looking to hire new employees. Of course, you're a sole practitioner to begin with, but again, if you have put in the effort to build this business and let's say you're growing, how do you ensure that the brand, the message, also gets translated to the potential employees who are looking to join your firm? Are you ever considering that? If you are the voice of a certain area of practice, and if let's say you've chosen small claims, or you've chosen LATB, you've chosen criminal law, and you have put in the effort now to write articles or maybe do quick blogs, podcasts, that's become a big thing. It does two things for you. One, it helps you build your credibility. It helps you put in the center stage as a voice of a cause, as well as a thought leader in that space. They're also established as a great way to market the brand and your firm's competence. Right? All of that comes under product experience. So you really have to think that through from a perspective of what is the overall experience that this particular website of my firm can offer. What is this experience that I as a law firm can offer through various other channels? How do I strategize the brand? How do I ensure consistent experiences across every touch point? How do I ensure my customer is successful? And how do I ensure that now they know what else I can offer that helps this business to be built further? Okay? And that pretty much leads to the kind of the last slide that pretty much tells the message. For the longest time, Starbucks was a coffee shop that served hot coffee. At one particular time, anytime they introduce a new coffee, a new brand, of course they go out of their way to market it across all stores. That's a franchise is a great example of how you can have consistent message created that can be then repeated without error or minimal error across all stores. Right? You're not going to see the one-off Starbucks store that has a red color cup. Right? That's going to be I don't even want to say rare. That's not going to happen. But now the fact that we now appreciate Starbucks as a coffee house that also serves cold coffee is something that resonates with a certain audience. It may not be for all, but certainly there's an audience for it, and that's what they've built. Likewise, a legal firm should be able to provide that same brand, the same customer experience when they walk in, the same user experience of providing, whether technology or otherwise, capabilities that enhance that user experience for your clients, and of course, leaves them knowing what other offers and services that you can deliver, because then they're going to think, I'm just going to go through that same experience, and the quality and services is going to be very similar. It's just the taste and the area of practice is going to differ, right? And eventually, the hope and what you're striving for is that every customer of yours is a repeat customer, but more importantly, a brand ambassador of your brand. Right? Work with ABC Legal Firm. Oh, they're the best. I went to them for this service, and let me tell you this, they were phenomenal. Their quality of service was awesome. They could then go take that and amplify it on their Facebook page if you give them the right tools to do so. So then they automatically become a brand ambassador. Right? So in terms of slide share, let me go through this real quick one more time. Right? I think I want to make sure that our message today hopefully it didn't put you to sleep. Hopefully it was not, saying the same thing. Being a point, that's always a fear factor. I often see very similar faces who join webinars. I want to add something new every time I speak about the same topic. So we were trying to talk about the 4 distinct experiences that we believe a legal firm should consider providing to the end constituents or audience, starting with the brand, the customer, the user, and the product experiences. We certainly spoke about each of these definitions in further detail. Right, we spoke about the specific documents and the tools that you could use to help automate and deliver a consistent experience across these 4 components. Of course, if you're looking to talk about the overall product experience and how do I better market the additional services, as always, adding a line item within any client-facing document with, of course, a website presence, maybe an incentive for a customer referral, or even a tagline which says, we also do this. I've seen that with a few of our clients where they have a tagline in some of the documents that are more client-facing. You don't want to put that on a general ledger document. In fact, you shouldn't, because it's a compliant document that's governed by the Law Society. You cannot put it in a court form. You're not going to put it on a Form 9A, but you certainly want to put it in a closure letter to your client. In an invoice, you could certainly have the right links that says, thank you for your business. By the way, here's a discount code for every time you refer us to another client. So that's a great opportunity for you to help have the right tools and strategy to help with that. So whether you use MailChimp or whether you use the right practice management tools to embed those links across your correspondence to your clients. Those are some things that you want to think about. All ideas are good ideas. It really comes down to how you implement them and execute on them, right? In terms of really SlideShare, that's all I have for today. I think there's a quick question about Christmas cards. Yeah, like I skipped talking about it. Let me. All right, so one of the things we talk about is, again, remembering certain key dates, whether it's an existing customer. So if by any chance, legally, you do understand the birthday of a customer, and if it's prudent, and if it's you want to ensure that you have all the boundaries and checks taken care of, sending them a birthday card. Again, not all situations are similar. This is just an example. But of course, sending them season greetings, sending them with letters that have any promotional items that you have to offer, any new areas of practice that you're introducing, you certainly want to use that brand ambassadorship within your client base to take that and spread it, right? And the website, of course, redefining the website, re-looking at it, that all helps. So hopefully that helped answer that question. Yeah, that was just an example. Christmas and seasonal greetings was just an example of, a good excuse, if you will, that you could take to reconnect with your clients. One of the best things that I've started to see within our customer base and also within legal professionals across the globe is taking this COVID situation and really voicing their opinion through podcasts. A lot of our legal clients have started their own YouTube channel, providing, I wouldn't say pro bono service, but really providing key information. I think that's all very available, but in a format that's more easily consumable. Talking about your rights, right? Not writing detailed documents that talk about your rights, but really articulating in an easy, consumable format, putting a face to the voice. Sometimes going on a YouTube channel, puts your pretty face on this video that people can now feel real. Like, oh, this is a real person. And this is the individual that I'm going to meet. And then meeting them on a Skype or Zoom creates a better impression. Working with them through that experience hopefully leads them with a lasting experience. So that's a big takeaway for me to provide to you is think about it. Again, depending on your personality, you may decide to do this as a team. You could even hire individuals who can do this for you. So you may have the strategy. You may really not have the acumen or the interest to go on YouTube or write a blog or something like that. But if you have the insight, the content, you can, of course, hire bloggers, not very expensive, to help you write, a 100-page article every week. It doesn't have to be every day. It could just be once a week, but setting the expectation. But what's important is once you start, that you plan to be successful at it and be relentless at it for at least a few years from there. So you start a blog and you don't want to stop it within 2 weeks because you may have not even built an audience by then. And if someone sees your blog archives and the last blog you wrote was in 2016, of course, that doesn't leave a good impression, right? So if you want to start a blog, plan for it, have the money, the time that it takes to deliver it consistently for a longer period of time. Okay, so with another few more minutes left, I certainly want to take any questions that you may have. I'm also going to quickly showcase to you some of the documents that you certainly can automate using practice management tools such as uLaw. I'm not saying it's the only tool. There are many tools that do a great job. You pick and choose the tool that's right for you and your business. So if you really look at I'm going to take a simple example of a file, and starting with the retainer letter. Right, so let's say I'm going in with a elaborate retainer letter for about $1,000 retainer. Depending on who within the firm signs up that client, and that's another thing too, right? You could have a letterhead, you could have a logo, all of the information, a signature depending on who the individual is, asking them to pay for that retainer right here, which takes them into a page where they enter their credit card information. So in this particular case, we've used Monaris as an example. So let's say that's a starting point, or a retainer letter. It could also be the client intake form. But let's say you started the client. I have maybe 5 more minutes left. So starting with that retainer letter and then taking you through the whole journey of the invoices. So if I were to just reprint an invoice that I worked on earlier today. Again, when the legal business, of course, it's not all looks. It's, of course, the content, the granularity of the prudence of the content, too. Because if you're going to tell your client in a retainer letter that you're going to be charging them $200 an hour, and then you send them an invoice with a $400 per hour bill, that's not consistency. That doesn't leave a good taste with your client, right? So you need to have the right tools. And this has happened. If you don't have this, and if it's manually dealt with, we've had clients before they've used our tool come to us and share that as one of the challenges that they've had. Their typical rate may be $400 an hour, but maybe be a friend's friend, and they agreed over phone that it's a $200 bill. Lack of communication, did not share that with the client intake expert in the firm or the front office or the assistant in the team, and they go ahead with a very cliched standard $400 retainer letter. Or sometimes it's the other way around. They got the retainer letter right. They just didn't reflect it right on an invoice. So you want to make sure that every step of the way you've done the right thing to be consistent. One of the checkpoints we allow is what we call as a preview. So you can always pre-bill. So prior to sending an invoice, always make sure that it's the right document and it reflects the document in its actual scope of work, right? If you look at this invoice, this of course does not have a branding experience to it because it was a choice. It's a different template, but you can certainly reprint those invoices. Let me show you that. Let me reprint that same invoice, and let me choose a different theme. Choose the default theme. You're going to see the same letterhead and the same logo. Okay? Very consistent with our retainer letter. It's the same blue and black, JR, and for Jason Practice. The same content though. You know, the template may be different, but it's the same content. End of the day, the client knows that that's what's the amount due. And the date of the invoice number, all remains to be the same. You can even put in your terms and conditions of payments. Again, it could be a very consistent, easy user experience for the client to know, oh yes, I could see that if I don't pay this invoice in 30 days, then what are the consequences? Right? Making it very obvious and straightforward. Because sometimes that's the fear factor in the legal business, is the unknowns. It's the fear factor of, what did I not put in explicit? What else could be good examples? We've looked at retainer letters, invoices, of course, payment receipts. So if you've received payments, you know, making sure that you have, so let me take a quick example. Let me accept that payment of 2743. Too big a matter. I'm going to choose a different one. Again, the retainer receipt or payment receipt, very important. Okay. And again, tools, what they help you with is if you already work with an existing client, let's say Ryan Dillsworth, makes it easier for you to do conflict checks quickly, makes it easier for you to work with the client faster, you're not waiting to get back to them. It makes it easier for you to repurpose all that information that you've already stored in your database so that you're not retyping their first name, last name, and things of that nature, right? So if you've got a half-hour client intake at about $200 an hour, and you generate that invoice right away, send it to them, email it to them if you will. Keeping that a consistent workflow. And then the payment receipt, of course, very important. Both the retainer receipt, payment receipt, very important from a legal firm standpoint, of course, because you're now validating the actual amount paid. You don't want to get into a situation where the client challenges you by saying, "Oh, I actually paid you $5,000 and not $500." And if you didn't have the proof to showcase that, right? So here's the invoice, and we'll just accept the payment. Put a payment reference number. And again, delivering a very consistent receipt. I guess there's maybe a couple of more documents that I can maybe showcase within the time that I have. So let me download the receipt. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them away. There you go. So it's got the letterhead logo, and you can tweak this the way you like it to be. Change these letterheads and logos at any time. And it's also compliant. So the content is very important. Once you've automated the user interface and the branded experience, then all that changes, and the importance goes back to the content itself. I could also maybe think of the bill of cost, maybe settlement accounts, especially if you're working with corporate clients. Often we've seen that it's a monthly or at least a quarterly document that's being sent that can be branded in terms of what's happened, what's the work done, etc. Right? Could be a bill of cost document too. This varies based on really the area of practice. Not all areas of practice necessarily the lawyers or legal professionals are providing bill of costs, but certainly a candidate for branding. But of course, practice management tools help you with once you have the brand, once you have the logo, once you have the letterhead, it allows you to build that consistency, combining with the prudence of the content in it, making it easier to provide even the user experience like we looked at, make payments online, to send these documents digitally, have digital signatures embedded, making that customer and user experience better. But there are other tools such as I mentioned, the voice over IP phones, how you're set up for a mobile legal office, having the right marketing strategies, and the help or the expertise to mass market your brand's message and the competence that you bring to your constituents. Okay. So I'll now open the floors for any further questions that you may have with regards to today's webinar. which focuses on the brand, user, customer, and product experience. All right, either it was too informative and I nailed it, or it was so bad that many of you dropped out, or I put you to sleep. It can only be one of these two things. Okay. Feel free to email us at support@uLawPractice.com if you have any further questions around this or other subject areas that you'd like for us to cover in our forthcoming webinars. Do subscribe to our webinars, as we do offer these CPDs at least one every month. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad I nailed it. Well, I will take that as a great feedback for this wonderful weekend ahead. So we do have our webinars that are listed on our website at info.com or info.uLawPractice.com/webinar. That's where you can go to and you can register your name. We don't haunt you with emails. We just send you important, relevant. And we have our document management simplified for next week, starting a new business. So that's a relatively new webinar topic that many of our clients have asked us to talk about. And then towards mid of August, we have our Everything Practice Management CPD credit for the month of August. So thank you, everyone, once again for joining today's webinar. Have yourself a great weekend. I look forward to speaking with you next week. Take care.